you went on from the SEALs to the CIA. In the SEALs, you're with all sailors.
Yeah.
But in the CIA, you're drawing from probably several different walks of life, several different backgrounds. What's that like putting together a group of different people who had different kinds of trainings?
What it meant was all of these people have different training. It's kind of that melting pot. Can you get some of the most stubborn people on the planet that are all trained differently and they all know it all to all vibe off a new sheet of music? So I'm writing a book right now called The Return of Man. And in that, I touch on this in a chapter. And I thank that community for teaching me it's not where you're from, it's where you're at. Like if you ever stop learning, you become dangerous in so many ways, right? But to be able to say, to humble yourself and say, listen, the way that we did it was fantastic, but I'm open to hear another way. And then to be like, rocking through that house like a well-oiled machine with people that you don't necessarily know with different backgrounds. Now you're saying something. That prepared me for teaching the world.
Welcome to Hey Chaplain. My name is Jared Altick, and I'm a chaplain with the police department. I spend a lot of time with police officers, and I believe that they deserve more encouragement than what they usually get. So on this podcast, you'll hear from officers who have been where you are, sharing their wisdom, experiences, and the lessons that they've learned. From the LAPD to Scotland Yard, the guests on Hey Chaplain are going to help you navigate with confidence through your career and beyond. Did you know that in every episode description, I include links so that you can contact me? You can email me, especially if you have a guest recommendation or if you're wanting Hey Chaplain swag, but you can also text the show by following the link that's included. You can text me a quick reaction or a review or a question, and I may post it on the website or maybe even read it on a future episode. I hope to hear from you soon. Today's guest is Jimmy Graham. Jimmy was a U.S. Navy SEAL and worked for the CIA. But one of the most interesting jobs he had, and one that overlaps with law enforcement, is that in both the SEALs and the CIA, he trained people in CQB. That's close quarters battle. Room clearing, hostage rescue, and room-to-room combat. Jimmy still trains people. But now he includes teaching on family relationships, the meaning of manliness, and his Christian faith. These are all lessons that were learned and confirmed in the shoot house. So in this conversation, Jimmy is going to talk about the wisdom he learned from CQB and how he's applying it as a husband and a father today. Here's Jimmy Graham. Hello, Jimmy. How are you today?
I'm good, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad you're able to talk to me today. I heard you speak this last summer at a conference, and I thought I could get an interview out of this. There's some good stuff right here. I like this. Can you tell me a little bit about your military background and just some of your experiences in that regard?
Yeah, a little over 15 years in the SEAL teams, a little over 8 of that active duty. And then I stayed reserves for about 7. And then I worked for 7 years for the CIA's GRS Global Response Staff, which is basically bodyguards overseas for diplomats that happen to work for the CIA.
What kind of specialties did you have in the SEAL teams? What areas did you focus on?
They're working on making everybody free fall now, but back then it wasn't the deal. You're the static line or you're free fall. So Halo, communicator, sniper, JTAC, so Joint Tactical Air Controller, control airplanes and all that. And then all the things that are particular to SEALs. Scuba, the jumping out of planes, the sea, air, land, component. And I was an instructor for land warfare for many years. And then also a CQB or close quarters battle instructor.
That's awesome. So let's talk about CQB. So close quarters battle, that's fighting, indoors, breaching and going into rooms and fighting in hallways and that kind of thing. What am I missing? What else does that encompass?
No, that's pretty much it. I think that the thing that gets glanced over, if you were to ask somebody, hey, how are you with a pistol? They're like, I'm pretty good. I'm like, what does that mean? And that can mean whatever you want it to mean. It's like, by definition, if you walk into say a gun store or a shooting club, there's typically basic, then advanced, then tactical. And I say, what does the tactical mean? To me, tactical means employment of skills. And for close quarters battle, it means how do you employ those skills when the rubber meets the road? I don't really care how you shoot on Tuesday at paper. Now your heart's beating out of your chest. Show me.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the truth. So we talk, and that, know the truth will set you free. It's like, man, we can't be hiding behind this lie, this facade of, yeah, I'm pretty good. It's like we're seeing, people fail all over the country that were supposed to know how to do this. They simply skipped the real part of it, the tactics part.
What does it look like to be in a shoot house with Navy SEALs?
When you're talking about that CQB, that close quarters battle, there's an art to taking down a house and flowing through. We have the term T360. We kind of coined the term T360, and where that comes from was when you're teaching people how to go in as a team. There's rules that apply to firearms. Like pretty much any firearms instructor would understand that there's some basic rules. When I start talking about muzzle discipline and finger discipline and pass-through potential, muzzle discipline might mean don't point your firearms at thing you don't want to shoot. Like that kind of, now it makes sense. We say the laser rule. So the laser rule, hey brother, if there was a lightsaber laser coming out and you go like this to your hand, sweep your hand, your fingers fall off, right? So that means something. Now I painted a picture for you. So I say there's 3 rules with that muzzle discipline. The laser rule, right? Don't put your finger in front of that laser. Don't put your hand, don't put your buddy in front of that laser. The second one is perpendicular plane, as if there's a plane of glass at the end of your gun, a perpendicular plane that you can't pass when you're close to it. When you're close to that gun, like so I reach ahead of my gun to pick up a magazine. You just broke a rule. If I push a door open and my gun doesn't go forward and my hand goes in front, you just broke a rule. And then that third one is pass through potential, right? So pass through potential, what can this round pass through? And a lot of times our training, especially at the range, we don't think about, I shoot the bad guy, round goes through and shoots kids, right?
Yeah.
So that has to be within your training. And a shoot house is one of the most important things you can absolutely have because there's no time to think. Your heart's beating out of your chest. And ours, people can grab you. We don't strike people, we don't beat people up, but I used to. In the SEALs and CIA, you bet you did. Wiffle ball bat to the face, pushing guys, give them a little slap upside the head. They got to be able to defend themselves, right? So that's the part that the world skipped, I say. Not the elite forces, obviously. This all came from somewhere. But that's the part that every patrol cop needs to know, right? But then as we spoke, when we met, is there's many things that are pretty sexy because I like talking tactics. But then I started applying them at my home. And I'm like, ooh, hold on a second. And not like I'm clearing my house.
Flashbang the kids.
Right. But the principles are sound. And like I say, especially with men, because that's where my heart is pursuing the hearts of men. But what I found was a lot of men don't believe they're men.
What do you mean by that?
An adult male human, much like the Matt Walsh. If people understood just that, when I told the guys, people were literally set free. I wasn't done talking yet. And they were set free going, oh, by definition, I'm a man, and I was when I turned 18. You turned 18, you're no longer a boy, you're a man.
Yeah.
So, okay, what's a strong man? And I write down a definition that I memorized years and years ago about integrity, a steadfast adherence to a strict moral or ethical code. A man with integrity is a strong man. Doesn't mean Christian. It means if you have integrity, there's strength in that, right? It takes a lot of strength to have integrity. And then I kept writing, but I don't think you're asking me that easy. I think you're asking me what's a good man. And that's a godly man. What I got back was somebody who aspires to save people eternally. Live a Christian life. I know this isn't an all Christian show, but this must be said. To live a life that is going to lead yourself and others into eternity. And we're recording this in National Preparedness Month. I was convicted to say, hey man, if there's one thing you need to focus on as far as preparedness, it's what happens when you die, right? And that's a big deal. That's just a big deal that everybody's going to ask themselves. And if you end up in the wrong place and your family's looking at you like, what are we doing here? If you've got any integrity, your answer is, I led you here, right? And that stings, and it's time to get to it.
Take me back to the term you used, T360.
So when you're training a team of I'm not kidding, an elite level team, one guy's Navy, one's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, SWAT, whatever. These are elite level trained guys, but we got to get on one page music right now, right? So we got to be, when I was teaching all these guys, they had to unlearn a thing as long as we were providing a better one. So we say, these are the rules. And then you show them, they all agree. But what I found myself saying from on the catwalk, as I was walking, I'd be like, guys, if they stay together, and their eyes are 360 degrees, and each member's body is saying what? To get to them, you got to go through me. Then you get a package. It's about the team until you get a package, right? So you're a little girl. Now you're not going off your point man anymore. You're going off the little girl. So your body, you position it saying to get to them, to get to her, you've got to go through me. You don't need to talk about it. Everybody knows it. So they just move in that fashion. But what I found myself saying was together, hey, watch 360, watch 360. You've got a gap there, together, 360, together, while moving. By the end of the week, it got shortened to T360, and they'd fix it. T360, we could throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at them and not touch them. Now they're ready to deploy to Iraq. Now they're going to, Libya. Now they're going to Afghanistan. Why? Because the teams over there expect somebody who knows this language. They know the dance, right? So there must be a standard. There must be a scale, right? So I believe in my home, the definition of a joy-filled marriage would be for me to say, on me. And if I snapshot, Rachel's watching my back. She's got the kids. She's doing this. She's doing that. She's paying the bills and all that. But when she, in 1 second, says on me, I'm doing the same, right? There's no negotiation. This is just what we do. And if she endeavors, like she did this year, to work 4 days at the school, she wants up, what do you need me to do? Who do you need me to pick up? I already got it. Don't worry about your 6. I've got it covered, right? I don't need point. We're a unit. We are equal in worth, different in station. Yes, I'm the leader, but letting someone take point is leadership, right? So that's a big, big deal that people need to understand. That slap me in the face is like, brother, you're not doing that. You're trying to be the guy. Look at me. I'm the dad. I got control. Well, good job, Dad. Your kids just turned 18 and they never held the reins. You always had the reins and they don't know what to do. We'll go to the airport and I'm like, kids, what do we do? And they're like, I don't know. Like, we're getting on a plane, so I'm guessing we go over to check in. That'd be a good idea. Can they ask questions? Sure, that's what I'm here for. But I let them do it, right? Something as simple as driving home, and they're like, hey, can I navigate? Sure. And we pass the turn. Did we pass it? Hey, you guys are going. Can I ask you questions? Yeah. Did we miss it? You did. What would you do? I'd turn left twice. You know what I mean? It's like all that. It just lets them make decisions. Now, I control the decisions, but letting them feel powerful and make those decisions is leadership.
So what I'm hearing you say is that a team, everybody on the team needs to understand what all of the responsibilities are. You need to know all the different areas to be covered.
Yes.
But being the leader of the team doesn't mean doing all of that yourself.
Correct. Amen.
Being the leader of the team is being able to very quickly communicate, hey, we're going to move now. And then everyone already knows all the responsibilities and everyone can step in and fill any role. Something I heard you say when I talked to you before was when a team is changing direction.
If the objective is, if somebody's hurting kids in the library, the solutions make them stop. We're moving there. The person closest to the library should say on me. And we'd make a wrong turn. And then you say, wait, because a wait kills a call. Wait. Library's this way, on me. And that switched, and it's a different person. It doesn't make sense for that person to run all the way over here. Man, now he's closest to the library. He says on me, everybody shifts on a dime and we're moving. And if you're that efficient, you know who wins? The kids. The ones that are still alive are the one that needs a tourniquet. Why? Because you've already figured it out. But if that person doesn't know how to do it, then there's a question. Why?
Right. So move that to the family. If there is an urgent situation and the husband or the wife or one of the kids is the person who ought to be leading at that point, then everyone else can adjust and you don't let your ego get in and say, no, wait, get out of my way. I have to be the one in front.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's what I see that a lot in these types of jobs, meaning when I was a SEAL, I'd be gone all the time. And when I came home, I felt guilty. So I'd take over everything and not let in. See, look, Dad's the leader. He's doing all the stuff, right? And when you look at something like that, and this stings to say, and that it's true, it just, who's raising the kids most of the time? Well, mom and grandma. So you got a Navy SEAL who's supposed to have all these just rugged, tough kids, and maybe they're timid. Why? Because they've basically cowered in your presence because you were trying to overcompensate for being gone so much, right? So that's just, I see it too many times, and then it's a done deal. Well, here comes guilt and shame, right? Okay, man. Okay, well, let's find the root of the issue and get to that, and start letting them lead and empower them to know the things. So when they do take lead, when they look back, it's not Dad trying to go over and grab the reins out of their hand. He's saying, keep going. And if you got any questions, I'm right here.
What was Jimmy Graham like when you first joined the Navy and the SEAL teams? What did you find there, and what were you still lacking?
A young man that had a lot of energy, and it was going the wrong direction, and I needed stability, and I needed discipline. I needed a challenge. I was pursuing honor, but I had no idea what that meant, right? So it took a long time to figure that out. And I grew up in the SEAL teams, right? So I think when you get there, you feel like the broken dude showing up, much like we talked about. And then you get there and it's like long lost brothers. You're like, oh, you too. You know what I mean? So and then we kind of grow up together and you're willing to push it literally to the end. Like rather die than not make it. And I mean that. Like I've seen people drown and reaching for the wall. They know exactly when you jump in the water and do this long distance underwater swim, they know it's kind of undoable. There's like a distance right here where your body freaks out. You have to shut all that off. I've seen guys reaching for the wall, almost make it, and then pass out. Like they're going to die without help. And a hand from an instructor grabs them, pulls them, touches the wall, and says, good job, as they kind of come back to. And they're like, you made it. Why? Because you're willing to risk it all. And other guys freak out 10 feet from the wall and they're like, you're out of here. You didn't have what it takes, right? So like if you're willing to go that far for this prestigious opportunity to serve alongside those kind of men, we got a space for you, right? So that's what they have. So on one, at a date and time for 6 months, they proved a thing. Then there's another phase after that that's really hard. It's like, STT. In my day, SQT is what they call it now. But you're not done proving yourself, but you are going to have to earn that. I would say mostly it's pay up front, pay in advance to even get into that door, but you got to keep paying on some level, right? The thing they lack is what I would call the lie of Valhalla. Like, I don't know how many times I've seen people cheers dead buddies into Valhalla. And you don't honor with a lie. You just don't, right? So that's the thing where I think if they had the courage to say true words, I lost a buddy named Lance. Here's the Lance. I believe him to be in heaven. Let's all tighten up so we can see him again. I wish I'd have heard that. I wish I'd have had the strength to say that because it might have saved souls. So that's a big, big deal. But guys like the sexy tough guy image until they realize that's how their family sees them and they're scared of them. And I've seen that. I call it the mad grandpa. It's like, all I know is grandpa's mad. Maybe it's at me. I just don't want him at Thanksgiving. And that's rough to figure out late in life.
What lessons did you learn in the shoot house that you began to apply in the rest of your life?
Oh man, that's so good. I would say the first one that comes to mind would be, a lot of times especially with law enforcement, I train a lot of law enforcement. I train a lot of military. I train like a lot of people from different walks of life. And then I train also dads, moms. That's who walked in the door and sustained this business. I thought I was starting a company to build shepherds in the form of protectors, meaning professionally, meaning military and police. That's not who walked through the door. Like when you go out on that limb of entrepreneur and you endeavor to do a thing, brother, anybody who walks through the door, please, you cherish everybody because it's make it or break it time. And who walked in the door was husbands and wives, followed by grandmas and grandpas. And they're like, I'm not sure how to protect my kids. And I'm like, okay, you're in the right place. What is protection? Mm-hmm. And I would say protection would be self-defense, which means you get some skills together and then stand in front of somebody you care about, right? Mm. The principle goes like this. To get to them, you've got to go through me. And I've heard people say, protect from what? The one word would be destruction, right? Mm. But that's mentally and physically and spiritually. That means all three. That means we've got work to do and you don't get a pick. That's your job. Like as a man, you're born into that, right? So when you talk about physically and you say, to get to them, you got to go through me, it means, well, let's talk about Sandy Hook. You had a protector and a principal that said to get to them, you got to go through me. And the kid did. He just shot her and stepped over her body and killed a bunch of little kids. Man, that stings. But we got to face evil. We've got to be able to. So she had the heart, but not the capability. So I'd say let's work on the capability. If it's spiritual and somebody's attacking our children, you need to say to get to them, you got to go through me. It means I'm going to stand here in front of them spiritually and be their father and teach them the truth. Right? If it means mentally, man, the enemy's right now taking our kids mentally, they're killing themselves. And then again, to get to them, you got to go through me. I'm going to counter every bit of that with truth.
Yeah, I feel that strongly because I see a lot of men who are at the later stages of raising their children, and they realize that they did a fantastic job of protecting them physically. Yeah, but they were not even aware that they were supposed to be protecting their mental and spiritual sides also. Yeah. And so now they're trying to play catch up and they're beating themselves up, feeling like, man, I've failed this, or I'm so far behind, I don't feel like I can catch up. What would you say to somebody that, they have a teenager or a young adult child, and what can they still do as a dad?
So, brother, the film's still running, man. We're sitting there, we're recording right now. Like, there's a book of Jimmy Graham being written right now in the big book, the big one, right? Like right now. And that was a big thing for me. This changed my life. Is understanding. I'm a chaplain now every Thursday morning with pouring to kids at a Christian school here and be that resource for them. And one of the things I drew up on the board, I first drew it in chalk for my kids, but I realized this as I was studying the Christian religion at Liberty University while overseas, while in Lebanon, while in Libya, right? On my computer, Oh, wow, protected people for the CIA. I drew this line with arrows pointing both ways, and I put a G here and an R here. This is Genesis to Revelation. There's a cross right here. There's an old covenant or contract or testament. There's a new covenant or contract or testament. And then I put a line, you are here. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not here like after the Bible. No, you're in it, actually. And I'm like, whoa, that blew my mind because all of a sudden it gave me purpose. I'm like, you mean to tell me the greatest story ever told, that's a true story, I'm in it, and it's an action adventure? Boy, that'll pull you out of your boredom real quick when you realize the problem's you, but also the solution is you. And I'm like, man, okay, roger that. I'll take that challenge all day long. And now I'm back in it, right? So to think that, oh man, I messed up. Who are you working for? Is it good or evil? Is it Jesus or Satan? That Native American thing where a white wolf and a black wolf that's fighting for your soul, and the grandfather's telling the kid, and the kid says, which one will win? The grandfather says, the one you feed, right? So if you're sitting there getting caught up in guilt and shame, you're feeding the black one, man. You're feeding evil, and that's destruction. So, or you can say, this is a great lesson, by the way, because I deal with people that are my mentors that are older than me that are covered in shame. It's, brother, I'm still watching. Like, I've never been 70. I've never retired. I've never done this. Show me how to do it. I've had people show me how to die. My sister-in-law taught me how to die by dying in front of me and praising Jesus the whole way. And I was like, she's one of my heroes, truly, right? Yeah. So to say Grandpa was kind of a train wreck, but at the end, he pulled it together and he loved us unconditionally for the rest of his life. Man, that's a good lesson. It's just a good lesson if we're honest.
Every man is going to transition from being the doer to the mentor. And you're going to have a day where you just are not the best person to be kicking in the door and going in first. And so you're going to have to transition from the door kicker to the teacher.
That's right.
And so that's something that will happen. And it's okay if you feel like you're coming in late to the game, but that's going to be part of your journey as a man.
Like I must decrease so you can increase, right? We were taught that. We know that, right? I had Navy SEAL buddies come out, fly in for this retreat. So there was two of them, and they weren't there as like a showpiece. They were there because they needed it, right? And that's some of the stuff we dealt with. As we aired that out and said, awesome, like you must decrease. Why? Because if you're on the stage, my son Christian, if I'm on the stage, he can't take it. It's full. Right? I must decrease and he must increase, right? So I must decrease so my wife can increase. Can't be all about Jimmy, and it shouldn't be, right? For me to kneel down low so I can lift you higher. Like I'm not diminishing to go away. I'm diminishing to pick you up, right?
It's okay to be humble.
Right. And you know what do the people need? What do the people need? They need that young 25 to 35 to 45-year-old door kicker, right? They don't need 50-year-old Jimmy kicking the door and throwing his hip out, right? And stretching the hand out. That's just honest, man. I want to be that guy. I truly do. But man, I can mass produce those guys, right? But just my body, I've been hard on my body, man. And if we're being honest, I tell my son this, and this is empowering. I look him in the eyes and I tell him, it's like, I'm going to protect you until it's time for you to protect me. I go, grow up slow, but grow up strong. Because one day you're going to protect this family. He's like, even you, even me. Like he's like, I'm going to be stronger than you. Yes, you're going to be stronger than me. His head comes up, his chest comes out. And it's like you said it, I'll say it a different way. You're the authority in their life until you become the influence. And I got a 16-year-old, so we're knocking on that door. I'm not going to do well with that, but I know it's coming and it's beautiful. Like I'm going to be that authority. I'm going to make decisions, but then school's out and now I'm an influence just trying to get a piece of your time. And I hear that from my mentors and I cherish that. I just took my 16-year-old on a date the other night. And next year we walk to Camino with she'll be 17 and my -2 will be 15. So 17 and 15-year-old girls stuck walking across Spain with dad. Bring it.
That's awesome. One of the things I heard you talk about, you used a phrase, feed the front.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
Feed the front, and I'm gonna start tactical, then I'll bring it back down. Is look at Uvalde, and I've been to Uvalde. I'm not the guy armchair quarterback, poking people in the eye. I've talked to those dudes. I've looked in their eyes while they cried, and we've talked about all this stuff. I was in Texas doing a training. They called me over for some resources, and I sat there and I talked to them. I gave this brief about 5-6 times of like, this is how this should go, and like this is what the core of the problem is. That was, we know the problem and it's scary, so let's find work back here. That's called feed the rear, right? You don't say on you. I'm like, hey, Jared, it's really dangerous and you should go clear it. You're like, why aren't you cleared it? You're not a badge. And then I say that kind of cowardice begets cowardice, right? So now we're talking each other into getting hand sanitizer, into checking my phone, into holding up. We need more equipment. Brother, you got everything you need, but you're not stepping. Now let's fast forward to Tennessee. Officer Rex in Tennessee, I dissect these, and it's on my podcast. We've got a breakdown of both of these. He did exactly right in saying this. He got information, didn't turn out to be true. Why? Because it's a dynamic situation and it changed. But that woman is a hero. She stood her ground. She gave adequate information. Kids upstairs, shooters downstairs. At this time, the shots fired, but the kids are upstairs. And we got them all -2. We're missing some kids. Great, great. I wish she wasn't so close to the building for her own safety, but I love her. I don't even know her. Anyways, he takes that information and he says, give me 2, give me 3, whatever, give me 3, I think it was. But then the most important part of that video, they open that door and he goes, let's go. And he takes a step. And when he took the step, he fed the front. He's not telling you to go. He's saying, this is how I shepherd. I'm going, you're invited. That begets courage.
Yeah,
I'm going with Jimmy. I'm going with Jared. I'm going to lead, you follow. So I'm going, you're invited is you can't make men do anything. I can't tell you what to do. What I can say is, man, I'm going because those kids need me and you're invited. And you go, I'm going with them. So am I, so am I. Then you look back and watch that video again, see who's driving. There's people waiting in the hallways. They're waiting. Hey, he's got a bigger gun. Get him up here. You got that pistol will do the same work as that rifle at those distances, right? What we need is a leader, and he showed up. So that's the definition of feed the front. So when you add feed the front and T360, anybody can run point. When they say on me, everybody else protect that person, right? So all of that we know tactically, but everybody likes to tear apart the guys at Uvalde. Well, why are you talking about it and why aren't you doing it? If you say on me and step, all of a sudden there's credibility. Credibility goes a long way with men, right? So if you talk too much and not doing, you lose credibility. So that part of it is like, hey man, easy on the Uvalde guys, because I see you talking about a threat that you're not going, right? You're back here in the back, feeding the rear.
Explain what you mean. We're kind of leaving the tactical, the actual active shooter situation, and we're moving into the metaphorical. We're talking about things in our family. We're talking about things in our life. How are we feeding the front or not feeding the front in these other areas?
Men are easier. They like to complain more than they like to solve. So I say, let's just complain for a minute. Let's just give them free rein. Let's complain, but let's narrow it down to one thing to complain about. So if I start complaining about men not being healthy, then you say, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to those mountains for a week. I'm going to raise money to buy all the camping gear needed. I'm going to get the venue together. I'm going to get all this. I'm going to get a chef. I'm going to put the curriculum together. I'm going to do all that. I'm going, you're invited. And then 17 men and they go get healthier. And then I go, okay, now that we've got healthy men, what are we going to do with it? I'm going to be with my son on a motorcycle for 4 or 5 days in the Rocky Mountains doing the Alpine Loop. He's 10 years old. And if you come, I've got a covenant and you're going to sign it. You're not going to sign it. You're going to read it. And it's going to challenge you to be a better man and watch your drinking and watch your language and do all that stuff. Because if you're going to be a bad example, it's my job as a father to not present you, right? And you don't have to sign it, show up, and I know you agree with it. And if you don't show up, then maybe you didn't. But I'm going, you're invited, right? So all of these things that if it's the problem, find the thing that's wrong with the world and do the opposite.
You're deliberately and intentionally investing in people.
Yep.
And you can talk about it all day long, but eventually you're going to have to step through that door.
Yeah.
And that's tough. Yeah.
Exactly.
So talk to me about half-second assessment. What does that mean?
Yeah, anybody in the tactical world would understand that as target ID. And we would teach it this way: is your fingers up and outside the trigger guard, not just outside, it's up and outside the trigger guard to control that gun not going off, right? You got to get target ID, decide to make a shot. You don't reflex shoot ever. It's always a decision. And there's a half second when your finger is traveling towards that trigger where you can actually talk yourself out of it. And again, something that for the most part the world has skipped. People have learned to shoot, but they haven't really put a lot of training into not shooting while under pressure. So getting somebody under pressure, startle them, and then see if they don't shoot. That's what we want. We say we teach you how to shoot, we teach you how to not shoot. So on that one, you go through that process and you would say, what would happen if I didn't? And there's answers for that. What would happen if I didn't pull the trigger? Well, I would die, they would die, sexual assault, kidnapping, arson, as long as you're defending people. Those are all good answers, right? So everybody understands that half-second assessment as a second assessment when we're talking about guns. But then when I say, are you using a half-second assessment, target ID to your spouse, right? I kind of am the imperfect perfectionist and I'm a fixer. And I bet a lot of people listening could relate, right? So I will just talk without running it through a filter. Now, obviously, Christian guy, man of faith, it would be that Philippians 4:8 filter. Is it true, noble, right, and pure? Is it lovely, admirable? Is it excellent and praiseworthy? If not, it doesn't come out of your mouth, right? But who's got time for that? You know what I mean? So one, it goes over my ears. It doesn't reside in my head if it doesn't pass through that filter. And the second chance is it doesn't come out of my mouth, right? But the ones we're worst, with are the ones we're closest to, and it's like, man, I was an professional instructor. Some of this like quick, not taking a half-second assessment, that quick knee-jerk reaction conversation thing I say to my wife, I would never talk to my students that way, ever. And then it convicts you and you're like, what are you doing, man? Is it a target? Is it a threat? Man, your wife ain't a threat, right? That's a good-willed woman who's trying to communicate. It's just, we got to decode it with that pink and blue thing, right? So, man, take a second. And I would say probably the first time ever, because of a counselor friend of mine, she said, have you ever considered saying, I don't know? And I thought about it, and it really got me because I'm like, I don't think I ever, in a heated conversation, she asked you, what did you just hear when I said that? Saying, I don't know. She was like, it'd probably go a long way, your wife hearing you, Jimmy Graham, saying you don't know something. And not only that, but could I please have a day to process that? And I will get back to you and then make sure you do. Right. And I did that the other day, and we'll see how it goes. It was just, you know what, respectfully, like it started getting hot. And I was like, literally, I need help here. Like I'm falling back in that thing. I feel it. And like, Jesus, give me words to say. And it was literally, can I process that for a day? And then instead of responding to her, I wrote her a letter. Right. I wrote it out because it takes the body language, the tone, and even my spoken words out of the equation, because that's a part that I'm struggling with. So I wrote it out for her, and she just said, thank you very much. I appreciate you sending that.
Why do you think that soldiers and cops and others bring home the abusive, vulgar language? Why do you think that is so natural to do?
I think it's expected of us. People hear guns and Navy SEAL, and they walk in and they're like, effing blah, blah. I go, can you watch your language, please? And they're like, they turn into like 8 years old. And they're like, did I? And I'm like, yeah, about 10 times, but whatever, let's just move on. I don't make it a huge deal, but it is a deal. And then I don't allow it. Right. But I think it does. I think a lot of times the world has lied to us. And we do weak things to make us feel powerful. Right. And it's just not, I asked a guy, I was at a Christian deal one time, and there's this new wave of Christian deal where there's a lot of, hey, let's just be free and cuss, and Jesus wants us to express ourselves. Absolutely disagree about that, by the way. But I asked the guy, I'm like, hey man, he's like, do you have a question? He was my group leader. I'm like, I got a question. What's up with your language? And we went down that road. And then finally on like day 2, he broke, and he's like, it makes me feel powerful. And I was like, wow, it's amazing how we do weak things that make us feel powerful. It's like, do you want to look strong or do you want to be strong? Because to choose better words actually takes intellect and strength, right? Yeah. But I've seen it infested. Like if there was, I think it was the President Trump assassination, the first one. It's crazy we have to say that. But when the audio came out, it was disturbing. And everybody's like, whoa, what's up with Officer Friendly? Like he's actually kind of a rough dude. And there's a time, I get it. Like you smack your thumb, miss a shot, or you're in combat. Hey man, there's a lot of grace in that. But you're trying to raise stronger kids. You'd smack your kid, probably not. But if they talked like that, you wouldn't allow it. Like, hey, I'm just watching you, Dad. And man, that's honest. So that's the part where we really need to get back to the truth and say, brother, you want to look strong or be strong?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head that people in their deep innermost parts, they want to feel powerful.
Yeah.
And there are scary things and stressful things that make them feel weak.
Yes.
And so the cursing comes out to feel powerful again. And I've heard so many cops explain, well, you have to express urgency or whatever. And it's like,
feed the black one, man. Feed that black wolf. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. I think you're feeding the wrong wolf. Right. Exactly.
And I do this under pressure when guys go on the street. I have to, because that's all they understand. I go, let me give it a try. And I do the same drill. Hands now, and they do the exact same thing, but I'm expressing with body language, tone. I just choose better words, right? So that part, it's like, no, I did the exact same thing, actually better, and it was recorded, so I actually protect myself. So that's okay.
Yeah. For what cops, you want to do. Now everything
you look out of control, by the way, and your words mean something. So when you say that stuff and you hear it again in court, that's you talking. So you can blame it on somebody else, or you can own your words, right? So it is actually a protective principle as well.
Well, and I've also heard cops say, well, I can't help it. It's just how we talk. And yet when they are in court and they're sworn in, they don't talk that way to the judge.
Right.
It's like it's just turned right off. Yeah.
You're making statements of weakness and claiming it to be strong. Like when you say I can't, like that, I love that one. He made me mad. He can't make you mad. He can be him and you can choose to be mad, right? When you see somebody under self-control, which again, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and the last one we hate, self-control. When you see a man truly under self-control, it's impressive. But you're like, wow, that guy's not weak. He's actually strong and he's controlling himself. Weird. It's not weird. It's supposed to be the standard.
Jimmy, thank you so much. I appreciate you talking to me. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, you're so welcome, man. I enjoyed it.
I'm so grateful to Jimmy for doing this interview and to Dr. Barry Young for helping to set it up. Those two are old friends who go way back, and I appreciate Barry helping me to make the connection. This show is free for everyone because of those supporters who are quietly helping behind the scenes. If you want to help this show to reach more cops, chaplains, and other first responders around the world, please support the show by following the link in the episode description. On the next episode of Hey Chaplain.
In my personal opinion, it's okay to do multiple applications to different units to do different things. However, choose wisely.
What does that mean?
What I would suggest is someone that does what we call a shotgun application, where a shotgun shoots out 8 pellets, right? So you shotgun out 8 applications. What's the implication is that you are just trying to get out of, say, patrol. That person doesn't want to be in patrol. They want to be here.
It's not that you necessarily want to be on the SWAT team. You just want to not be in patrol. Or at least that's the appearance it gives.
Definitely.
Okay.
So if you limit those applications, it shows you are somewhat diversified. You are interested in other things. You also give yourself a chance of getting picked to go somewhere else if this one doesn't work out. So I would caution people from just applying for everything. Narrow those things down, learn the characteristics of those positions that you want, and then really emphasize and double down on those characteristics that they want for those positions and learn about them, and then you'll be able to have a better candidacy for those positions.
The views expressed here are the personal views of the host and our guest and do not necessarily represent the views of any law enforcement agency or its components. If you like this episode, please share it with a cop or someone who loves a cop. Thank you for listening to Hey Chaplain today, and as always, pray for peace in our city.